Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Herbie's Cooking Corner for February 14th, 2023. Yes, probably very important that I actually do remember this particular date, given that it is Valentine's Day. So happy Valentine's Day, everyone, and happy Valentine's Day to my wonderful co-facilitator, Twinkling Tori. How are you, Tori?
Hello, Herbie. I'm doing okay, and same to you, and hello, everybody.
All right, so we got a fabulous crew taking care of you all as always, as we're covered in Zoom and Clubhouse. So how this is going to work is for now, when we take questions, I strictly want things that are related to what I've done so far. If you have any questions or need any clarification or whatever, we will talk about alternatives, and there's plenty of other ways to make beef stew and all that. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. So just, we'll talk about all that later on. So, yes, as you heard me mention, that we're going to be making beef stew, and I do want to address a question that we got beforehand yesterday that was asked: do you need to prepare any of this stuff ahead of time? And I just want to remind everybody, when I give the recipes, I do try to be specific as possible if you need to do something ahead of time. But the idea in this call is for me to show you in real time how to do these things. So most things you are not going to need to worry about doing ahead of time.
And if that ever changes, we will let you know.
Exactly. So could not get to my mute in time there. It's trying.
Bless you.
Thank you. Well, that was a bit belated, but
Well, better late than
okay.
never.
Very yes. So first of all, and sadly she was muted, so I don't know if she heard me on the thing, and I don't know if she's listening now, but I will make sure that I did mention this to her though ahead of time, is that she is the inspiration largely for this particular idea for the cooking call today, and that is ACB's very own Colby Garrison. Yes, a very important piece of our community as she puts things together, but you may remember her from as a guest appearance on the call last year, where we got inspired by her cooking. And now, where this differs from Colby is, originally I think her recipe was supposed to be for rabbit stew, and we're not going to do that here. We're going to actually do beef, but and she did switch to beef just for the record. But and I need to get her call uploaded. And by the way, I've actually set a new record. I've gotten 3 calls uploaded to YouTube this past week. So anyway, so let's get things started. And the first thing that we're going to do is talk about the stew meat. And this is something that I learned about from Colby, though it did not surprise me to know that such a thing existed, because it is kind of obvious, especially for this day and age. And that is stew meat. So I actually played around with this the other week for a stroganoff recipe, and it worked so well that we decided that we'd use it when we wanted recipes that called for chopped beef. Now, this is not the same as ground beef. Aside from the fact that it's not been on the ground, it is actual cubes, so not
Herbie,
like
that's
little.
not what they mean by ground beef.
Oh, it isn't.
Nope.
Oh, oh. Well, you learn something new every day, don't you?
Yep, and the vegan's gonna teach you about the meat. That's smart.
Yep. Guys, I always knew this was a warped call, and I'm learning more about meat now from a vegan. And anyway,
It's also funny that the vegan knew about the stewed meat when you didn't. The stew meat.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Well, I was just into old habits like cutting and things like that, and we will have to do a
yeah,
lot of that for today's recipe.
I'm all about shortcuts when possible. So
Yes, shortcuts do come in handy, and we will be doing some shortcuts on today's call. So what we're going to need is to get our pot out. And what we're going to do is cook our beef on cook it on all sides until it is seared. And this basically means you want it fully cooked all the way through. And in the meantime, while that's happening, we'll start to get the rest of the things recipe. And so let's start with the pot. I am using a heavy-duty pot for this. This is actually what the recipe calls for anyway, but I even like to use it for recipes that don't call for a heavy-duty pot, that just call for a skillet, because it makes it a lot easier not to spill things over the side of the skillet when you're stirring. So I really do like my heavy bottom pots. The recipe calls for vegetable oil and olive oil. I think just olive oil will be more than sufficient. So I'm putting in enough olive oil that the meat will cook.
Yeah, I really don't know why it calls for both. You really don't need both. Just one or the other.
No. But hey, that's what happens when you just get stuff off of the internet. And by the way, so one of the common questions is, where do I get my recipes? This one, I just did a search for beef stew and I nitpicked because there were several, and there's several that call for wine and all this other stuff. And I've never really cooked with alcohol, so I don't know why I should start now. Let's get out our stewed meat. So it's very easy to identify. This calls for the full 2 pounds of stewed meat. So in Walmart, it's referred to as the family pack. And I can just feel it comes in your regular meat container with the the styrofoam tray and the plastic wrap lid and all that, and you can feel right through the packaging that the beef is chopped up, so it's very easy to identify. I'm going to use my fingers to kind of peel back the plastic wrap, and then we're going to hold the tray over the pot and start pouring in everything. The one thing you have to be careful of with this is the plastic wrap that the beef sits on. So I'm just holding that in place with my finger. And now while that's in the pot, I'm going to throw this away, and I'm going to just move the meat around the pot here with my finger, or you can use a spoon. But I want to make sure it's nicely coated with the olive oil, so it's going to have an easier time cooking. And now we're going to turn the stove on. I think medium-high will be sufficient for this. I may even turn it down to medium once it gets started, because I want to make sure I have enough time to deal with the rest of my veggies. So let's see here. Now that that's started, we need a few minutes for the stove to cook, to heat up. So next up, we're gonna cook the stove. So, did we have? Okay, I think. Were you trying to say something?
We do have one possible raised hand, and that would be Cheryl.
All right, Cheryl, let's get to your question quickly before we move on to the next part of this recipe.
You should be able to unmute, Cheryl. Okay, Cheryl, you should be able to unmute now for sure. If you did have a question, I'm going by the fact that your hand was down in the raised hands, and so.
Yep.
All right, then.
Very well. All right, do we have any questions over on the Zoom side? Hearing none, let's continue on then. So what we're going to need now is onions, carrots, and celery. I was able to take a shortcut with the onions and get them already minced, so I don't have to worry about that. I should have thought about seeing about finding the already chopped celery. Now, the disadvantage, of course, is taking some of these shortcuts that can be more expensive, but depending on how often you use them, that they may or may not matter. I could have used, like, sliced carrots, but
But you didn't.
but I did not. So, if you're going to do it the regular way, it calls for 1 medium yellow onion, 2 carrots, peeled and cut, 2 stalk celery, chopped, kosher salt, freshly ground black pepper, 3 cloves garlic, minced, and a 1/4 cup of tomato paste, which we do not have, at least in this household, because we don't use tomato paste. The beef broth, we'll talk about that in a minute. It does call for a cup of red wine, and like I said, I don't cook with alcohol or do anything with it, so we're going to
Me too. I
eliminate
don't
that
even
from...
have it in the house.
Exactly, so I think the stew will be just fine without it, but you can use it if you so desire. And you should now be able to hear the sizzling,
Yep.
so that means the beef is cooking. And then we do need a tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce, thyme leaves, 2 bay leaves, and these bay leaves and thymes are kind of optional. A pound of baby potatoes, and a cup of frozen peas, which I am also eliminating from this recipe, but and you can use parsley for garnish.
Or as one of the herbs you throw in if you'd rather do that.
Yep. All right. So the one thing it actually does not tell us is when to add in the garlic, but oh no, we do add the garlic in the. Okay, very good. Duh. All right. So while the beef is cooking, I'm first of all going to get a spoon and give it a stir.
And probably turn it down to medium to give yourself time to salt the veggies.
Yep. All right. Make sure this pot is centered on the burner. Okay. That'd be a useful invention, is a thing that can just magnetically seal a pot onto a burner and leave it in place until you manually unlock it. I guess maybe the one concern could be fire safety, but... So, our shortcut for the carrots is going to be baby carrots. And these are nice little things, because you can just chop them right away. You don't have to peel them, cut them, anything like that. And they are very easy to cut. And Colby had mentioned that she left her carrots whole in the stew, but they probably would have done better chopped. And I do agree with that. They would have done better. I think the idea of leaving yep. Probably the reason why she might have had to leave them whole originally is because it might make the rabbit feel better, thinking that it has the carrot it could eat.
People just kind of assume that you want like large things of veggies, but they cook better if you make them a bit smaller.
Yep. Oh, okay. So it wasn't for the comfort of the rabbit. Good to know.
I'm pretty sure that once you put it in a stew, the rabbit's comfort is not really an option anymore.
Probably not. That is true.
I don't know about you, but I wouldn't be very comfortable in a pot.
No, I would not be myself. Alright, so I'm just taking some carrots out of the bag. I got them on a cutting board, and then we're just going to chop to make them into nice little small circles. And I'm just holding the carrot with my finger and then just chopping. And let's So it's very easy to do with baby carrots, and you can make them into big circles, small circles, whatever you
Medium
want.
circles.
Yep, medium circles, medium to small circles, medium to big circles.
Or cut them in slightly different ways and they won't actually be circles. They'll just be chunks of carrot.
Yep. So, but the idea is you want them small enough that they're going to cook easily, so. The one shortcut I was hoping to take today was the baby potatoes, but I was not able to find them, so we're going to cut up big potatoes, but we'll have plenty of time for that while the stew is simmering, because we don't add in the potatoes till much later. And on that note, now's a good time for anybody with questions on what we have done so far. So definitely raise your hand in either platform and we will get to you. And so, Sheila, do we have anybody?
You do, Abraham.
I was wondering where you
He's
got
back.
to. We missed you last week. We thought you only came to my baking recipes, so.
You're muted, Abraham.
Abraham.
Okay, well, we'll go to
Abraham.
Doug. Doug, go ahead.
Hey, DJ.
No, it's not DJ.
It's the other. I think it's the other Doug.
Oh,
Doug?
okay.
There you go.
Yes. My question is, as a totally blind person, what technique do you use to ensure that the stew meat is cooked on all of its sides?
Very good question. So first of all, the recipe we know calls for about 10 minutes. Mine will probably take a little bit longer, but several things. One, that's why I do like to add in a lot of extra oil because it's going to cook that much more efficiently. And then two, the texture is going to feel a certain way, and it's going to feel more solid. So that's some ways you're going to know. And then honestly, for me at least, sometimes just by feel. And the easiest way is, you can get a fork in there, take out a piece and sample it, and that'll tell you, or even sometimes just by feel. And that's how I can usually tell that the stew meat is cooked all the way through. And also keep in mind, though, that it's going to cook a little bit more. Another option you could do, though you would not generate grease or whatever, is you could always heat it up in the oven instead if you felt more confident doing it that way. And I'm thinking probably about 20 minutes. And then you could just use the olive oil to heat up your veggies and stuff instead. And that would be another way that you can tell. And the smell is kind of going to give things away too, to a point.
Also,
But
while you're actually cooking it, move it around a bit so that it'll turn itself over as you move it around.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, Abraham, are you able to get unmuted? All right, Cheryl.
I have moved from Clubhouse to my computer. I have a personal assistant with me, and we both can't keep up with you guys, but we're trying. And I was wondering, I've got my stew meat in the pan. How much olive oil do I just guess at it?
You just guess at it. But I do
Okay.
enough to where I can see that it'll cover the meat.
Cover the meat. Okay, that's no problem. And I stir it to chop it up, right?
Well, so I got the pre-cooked stew meat, so it's already chopped up.
Uh-huh. Okay.
But otherwise, you'll need to chop it up ahead of time before you put it in the pan. Or I guess you could fry it as one chunk. Depending on the cut of beef, you could fry it as, like if it's a steak, you could cook it whole and then
And then
cut it.
chop it up afterwards.
Uh-huh.
But
Okay, then on the veggies, I got whole. I got them. They're all like normal in a packet of baby carrots. So I need to cut those up, right?
Yes.
Yes.
That's what I had in mind when I asked you all about doing things ahead of time. That's what my questions were.
Yeah,
So
well, Kirby's actually doing that right now.
cutting the veggies up.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Well, I may end up doing that when I leave you all. But anyway, the phone's in the other room. My assistant's listening to it on there, but I had an easier time finding the mute buttons on the computer. So anyway, so I need to just cut the onions and the carrots and the celery if need. What you're essentially going to do is just put it all in the pot.
Basically,
Yes.
yeah, cut it all up and put it all in the pot.
Yeah. So on
Though
the
it recommends to. The potatoes are going to cook in last, and so this is where it's a good idea to keep listening, because what we're going to do is we're going to put the onions, carrots, and celery in the pot. We're going to put the beef on a plate, and then we're going to add. What?
I've already put the beef in the pot.
Yeah, I know,
Yes,
but
but you need
after
to
it's
cook
done
the beef.
browning.
After you brown the beef, then you will be cooking the veggies while the beef stays out of the way.
And then we'll be adding back in the beef.
Yes.
Okay. So how do you
keep,
get the beef out of the pot without dumping out the olive oil?
well, keep listening and you can find out.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. This is probably, the recipe could have explained itself better. This is probably why they recommended the vegetable oil and the olive oil. I will just, what I'm going to do though, and I think this will prove to be the easiest, is I'm going to use a sieve which will drain out the olive oil. I could actually drain it out back into the pot. Actually, well, I couldn't, but what I'm going to do is use a sieve, and then I'm just going to add in some more olive oil to the pot and that in the veggies, and that will be the easiest way to go about that.
The veggies are not going to need as much oil as the
much,
meat did
no.
anyway. So.
And the pot's still going to have some residue of the olive oil.
Exactly. So there's probably going to be enough for the veggies, because the veggies are only going to need a little. They only need a small amount.
So what do you do to drain the beef?
Well,
what type
keep listening, and because Herbie hasn't gotten to that part yet.
Okay.
So.
Okay, Diane.
All right, Diane. And hello to Cheryl's personal assistant, by the way. I'm glad that you're going to get a chance to listen to this as well. All right, go ahead, Diane.
Okay. You were talking about cut meat, and I think I read somewhere several years ago that it's easier to cut meat that's frozen, and I wondered how you felt about that.
I disagree, at least from a blind
disagree
person's
as well.
perspective. I nearly chopped my finger off once by cutting frozen chicken because I could not feel. The chicken was so frozen that I could not feel my finger and where I was putting the knife in relation to the finger, and I just
You
barely
also have
avoided
to
it.
cut through the iciness as well.
Yeah.
I mean, as an example, a block of tofu you can usually cut through with a butter knife, but I actually still have a small scar on my finger from when I tried to cut a frozen block with a proper knife because the other one wouldn't go through. So
Okay.
definitely no.
Okay.
No,
Thanks.
I probably should turn the meat down to medium to cook.
All right, I got it.
Yep.
Thanks,
All right, and yes, I do recommend though the meat being on medium. So all we've done so far, guys, is I put the stew meat in the pot and I've been cooking it and stirring it and just cutting the carrots. So I've not done anything beyond that. I still need to chop up the celery. I've been monitoring the beef. Once I stirred it in more, then it kind of did a lot less sizzling. So that's how I can also tell it's done. I can just kind of, this part is a little bit of guesswork with the spoon, by the way, too, but I can tell that it feels solid. I can now scoop up a piece with the spoon and let it cool down a bit, and then I can sample it, where I can feel it. It feels like it's almost done. And,
Okay, that's all your hands for now.
Thanks, Sheila.
Mm-hmm.
So as you can hear, I avoided talking with my mouth full. So,
Yeah, he learned. Good boy.
I know. Okay, I can tell it needs steam just by it feels it tastes a slightly bit rubbery, so I think a few more minutes wouldn't hurt it, and it's on medium anyway. So now let's get out the celery. I originally didn't think I'd be using the celery because Chanel is actually somewhat allergic to celery, but she said go ahead, so we're going to do that. Alright, these... It says for 2 stalks of celery. These stalks are so small that I think we're going to do 3. And, maybe even 4. Because these are like tiny stalks of celery. I should have done the celery shopping from H-E-B rather than Walmart.
Ribs.
But, ribs, yes.
Because although they're saying stalks, people inaccurately mention that. Stalk is actually
so-
the whole thing.
Yep. Okay, so the stalk, or I'm taking, each stalk has like the little leaves on one side. We don't need those, so I'm taking them off. And the wide part on the other side, I'm also taking that off. And, we keep mentioning rabbits, but if you have a rabbit, you can give them those parts, I think, of the celery. If you don't want to stew them, that is.
Oh,
Maybe you do
actually,
want a
you have
fat-
to be careful giving rabbit to celery because where it's stringy, they can get it tangled in their throats and stuff. So
Okay. So now, because this is store-bought celery and not like pre-packaged, I'm washing off the stalks. And we're going to put it on the cutting board here. And, except there's this extra piece of carrot that did not get cut. And now we're just going to chop, 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 chop. So I'm just putting my finger at the end of the celery, moving the knife a little bit forward from it, and just chopping it. I'm doing like very small pieces because that's what I want to do. But you can do as big or as small as you want, but you do want to do something that is edible. And, so we're just getting through one thing of celery here. And, but no, I definitely, whether it's meat or anything, because like, Tori's example is tofu, but I do not recommend cutting anything frozen. I mean, if you're cutting something in half and that's a one-time thing, that's fine. And maybe if you're sighted, even then, I still don't know that it would be a good idea because,
no, I wouldn't recommend it even for sighted people because it's really it's harder to cut through frozen stuff in general, and it's really easy for your hands to get numb and to slip.
Yep. I would suggest if you don't like dealing with raw meat, you can always, like I said, cook the meat first in some cases and then cut it, depending on the recipe. Or get it pre-cut like we did in the case of the stew meat. If it's chicken, there's always like pre-cooked chicken you can get. So there are better ways around it than cutting things from a frozen state. So, okay, so
Herbie,
I'm going
Abraham
to-
has his hand raised again. I think he's finally figured out how to unmute. Would you like to take
All
it?
right, let's take it. Let's take it.
Hi.
Abraham?
Hope
There you
can
go.
hear me now.
There you
There
are.
he is.
Okay, my headset doesn't like a webinar, so once I come from ACB Presents, I don't know why it just thumbs up. Anyway, I couldn't make it last week because of the power outage we had here at the time, and I had a question. Wouldn't it be easier to cut your celery with scissors?
I've never tried scissors for celery. Tori, did you have any opinion on that
It's
one?
not really easier unless you're somebody who's not very good with a knife. If you're not very good with a knife, then yes, you can definitely cut your celery with scissors, but it's
And
not really necessarily easier.
you're doing one stroke at a time, right?
Yes. Or one rib at a time.
Thank you.
called.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks.
You're welcome. All right. So I'm glad it was. I thought you just didn't love us, or you only came to the baking calls because, I was anticipating last week first race hand. Oh, that's gonna be Abraham, and I was wrong.
Yeah, we
And
missed
so
you.
We did. Somebody even cried because you weren't here. I won't say who, but
It was him.
actually nobody.
Well, I
All
knew
right.
if somebody it had to be you because it certainly wasn't me.
Oh, it wasn't?
I mean-
You're not gonna cry because it's Abraham? One of our loyal
No,
subjects.
I missed him. I missed him and everything, but I'm not gonna cry about it.
Okay. Well, I was just trying to make him feel special, that's all. Anyway, do we have any other raised hands either?
No raised hands over here in the clubhouse at this time.
All right.
No, sir.
Do
Not
we
in
have
Zoom.
people? Nope. And, alright guys, so the meat I think is done now. I can just tell by the way it feels. So I'm going to let it cool down a little bit before I drain it. And I want to remind everybody real quick that they're...
With the stupid phone. What?
So we have somebody who's listening to me through their speaker as well. So I'm glad I'm being heard in multiple places. That was rather interesting. Okay, I've heard of friends in low places, but now I guess you've got me in multiple places. So anyway,
Yeah, your friends in high-tech places.
all right. So if moderators, my facility moderators, can make sure everybody is either muted or moved back to the audience.
And if
except for-
And
participants...
Herbie, if I could say this, when I mute you and you have background noise, please don't unmute.
Yes. Thank you.
And
Thank you, thank you.
Cheryl has her hand raised.
All right, Cheryl.
Thanks,
So
Sheila.
if you do have your hand raised, wait till we call on your name and then unmute, especially if you have background noise, like she was.
It wasn't her. It wasn't her.
Okay,
regardless
okay.
of who it is.
I wasn't trying to single out. She's muted. Okay.
Yeah.
She's
I'm
muted.
I'm not looking at my
Herbie,
screen,
Herbie,
guys. So I'm
Herbie.
not trying to. Yes.
Thank you, Herbie.
All
Under
right.
control.
She
Cheryl,
was
go
an
ahead.
excellent host, by the way. So, all right, go ahead.
Cheryl, unmute.
Go ahead,
Okay, can y'all
Cheryl.
hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, my question now is how many ribs of celery are you putting in?
I'm putting in 4, but that's because this stock that I got from Walmart was like this. I'd call it more like a mini stock. So, but a lot of this is again going to depend, of course, on your personal preference. The recipe
Okay.
technically calls for 2 stalks of celery. So you can interpret that as actual 2 stalks of celery or 2 celery ribs. If I'd have had the full amount, if this had been like larger celery, I would have just used 2. But because these ribs were just not the greatest size to begin with,
Basically, it depends how much celery you want in your stew.
it does. And that's
how
another thing to
about
keep
the-
in.
How about the baby carrots? How many of
Same
that?
thing.
It calls
same
for.
thing.
Yep. Technically, the recipe calls for 1 pound. So remember the. Well, okay. The recipe calls for 2 carrots. So whatever you feel like the equivalent of 2 carrots is, basically.
Okay.
And one thing I want to stress, though, guys, and this is one of the reasons why I love cooking over baking, is cooking is a lot more to do with personal preference. It's not as always precise as baking has to be. And
Yeah,
so,
baking, if you're making adjustments, you need to know what you're doing.
yep. Cooking, there's a lot more room for, okay, what is your personal preference? So, maybe you want extra onion. Maybe you want to, go heavier on the garlic than a recipe calls for. And sometimes you have that flexibility with baking too, to a point. But I
There
just
are
want to mention
limitations
that too.
because of
Yep.
the results will be a lot more different if you're doing it for baking than they would be for the actual cooking.
So we're going to get the beef drained now, and then we're going to put it on a plate and set it aside. So I'm going to take out a strainer, which I have done, and then take my pot. The disadvantage with this particular pot, it doesn't have a nice side handle. It has handles on both sides. But we're just going to pour the pot into the strainer. And I'm actually just going to let it sit in the strainer. I don't even need to worry about a plate, because it's perfectly happy in there. It's not going to run away on me or anything. Okay, so I'm just pouring. I've kind of got the pot centered over the strainer, and so now we're just pouring. And I'm going to put the pot back on the stove and use this opportunity to make sure it's centered. I'm going to next get my strainer and just kind of shake off the grease a little bit. And this is kind of falling through, and I'm shaking this over the sink. And this is what I meant by the shaking. I could actually do this, so I can shake off the excess grease back over the pot that I just got done using. So I've already added in some olive oil. And so now that I've done that, we're going to go to our cutting board, and I'm going to, excuse me. Now that we've done that, I'm going to get the cutting board stuff and put it in the pot. So I'm putting carrots, celery in the pot right now, and then I will go grab my onions, and we'll add a little bit more olive oil because it's a tiny bit got in the pan, but so I started shaking it out over the sink, and then I remembered that I was going to try to shake it over the pot, so the excess would go back in there. And so the idea is to fry these until they are soft. So just a tad bit more olive oil.
And bear
And
in
then we're
mind that
gonna
your pan's going to be hot from having been used for the meat, so it's going to be
Yep.
quicker than it would otherwise.
Yep. Now, one thing I did, though, that did start the pan cooling down a little bit quicker is I'd moved it to a separate burner that was not in use before, while it was cooling, while I was still chopping stuff, but gotta make sure the meat's cooked. Okay. So what I've got getting out now is a container of minced onions, and I got a ranch bottle falling on the floor. That will not do. And so these are already chopped up, so I don't have to worry about the onion peel or anything like that.
That didn't appeal to you?
No. And I'm going to, this container just has a nice little lid with a thing that I lift up, and then I pour directly over the pot, and then I can use my hands to make sure The rest is out, and now we can restart the stove again. And we're going to let this cook for 5 minutes. Now, one other thing I do want to mention, guys, is it's been a long time since I last made a beef stew. And in fact, I didn't make it all myself the last time. It was with me and my ex-girlfriend. Well, she wasn't my ex at the time, but this is actually my first time making it. And when we made it, it was actually a crock pot recipe, so it was a little bit different. And, oh wow, we are definitely eating up time here. Okay.
Eating up time on a cooking call.
Yep. Eating up time on the cooking call. And,
That's appropriate.
that is appropriate. So you can hear the pot sizzling. And so, does anybody have any questions while that's happening?
You do, Doug?
Hey, Doug.
Doug!
You're muted, Doug. All right, Cheryl, go ahead, unmute.
I wanted to make a comment a while ago. Y'all were talking about knives. I have a fear of knives. And what I usually do is I measure the width, usually of what I want to cut, like for instance, celery or carrots. And then I put my hand on the top of the knife once I've kind of measured the width. So I can, does that make sense?
It does. Thank you for the suggestion and tip.
And y'all did say something a while ago that sounded very interesting. I didn't quite get it on the cutting.
Okay, this is Doug. I finally got.
Hang on,
my-
Doug. Hold on,
All
Doug.
right.
They're answering
Yep.
the question. Hang tight.
Which thing? The thing about the scissors or the thing about the frozen stuff?
It was the stuff about frozen stuff, and Herbie said something about the way he cut. It was safe.
Well, what he says is that he uses his fingers and he's very aware of where his fingers are.
Yeah.
And what we were saying about the frozen stuff is that you don't want to be cutting frozen stuff if you can help it, because it's a lot more difficult and your fingers will potentially go numb, and that's not safe.
Right.
No.
Yeah. Okay.
Because
Thank
you
for
need to
clarifying.
have. You're welcome. As a blind cook, I am fully tactile. And we'll get to you in just a second, Doug. I haven't forgotten about you, I promise. But I like to be fully tactile. And yes, sometimes that has meant I've burnt myself, or I've probably burnt myself more than I've cut myself. In fact, though most of my burning has really been more thanks to water vapor, but some of you may remember that cooking call incident. But so you want to have all your extremities working if you possibly can. I realize that everybody has different conditions, so but you definitely want to be able to feel your fingers. And so what I do is, like, I put the knife. Well, I'll use my fingers as a guide and put the knife in between that spot where my fingers are, and so that's why I need to be able to feel where I am cutting. All right, thank you for that question, Cheryl. Doug.
Thank you. Getting back to onions, if you did have to chop them, I'm wondering, in your experience, is it true if you take an onion and put it in the freezer for about a half an hour that it makes it less odoriferous when you do chop it? And then the other thing that I've also heard and tried is that in order to get the onion smell off your hands, if you wipe them on, like, the side of your metal sink or stainless steel sink, supposedly that is to help. What are your thoughts and experiences with those two? Thank you.
The freezer thing, no, it doesn't really make much difference. Although, putting the bits of onion that you're currently not cutting, that once you've removed the peel, in a bowl of water does help a little. Um, but I've not found that the freezer thing helps. And the rubbing your hands on the stainless steel thing, that can help a little, but not drastically.
Thank you.
All right. So now that that's happening, the things are. So the way this recipe is going to work, guys, is we will not be done in time for the call to finish. I should have actually thought about making this one 2 hours. I didn't even think, but oh well. Like I said, this is the first time making beef stew, so we're going to let this soften up, and then we're going to add in salt and pepper and then the garlic, and let that cook. Do we have any other questions?
Heidi.
Heidi.
Hello. On one of the other cooking calls that I have gone on, they said that if you want to keep the odor down and keep your onion more intact, do not cut the root portion of your onion until last.
I haven't found that makes any difference personally, but
I haven't tried it, but I figured I'd pass the tip.
oh, thanks for the tip.
Oh, Nick said he has, and it does make a big difference.
Well, it didn't for my onion. Maybe mine was just an extra smelly onion. I don't know.
Could be. All right, thanks, guys.
Thanks, Heidi and Nick.
I guess the only way to know is to get 2 onions, do one way without the root and the other one with, and see if you notice a difference between the two.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, and you have one more, Cheryl.
Cheryl.
Hi, Cheryl.
Okay, how much garlic do you put in?
How much garlic do you like?
So it's one's choice.
Yes.
Do you measure it by the teaspoon or what?
So this one, I'll be talking about the garlic in just a minute, so hang tight for that one.
Okay, it's just a jar of minced garlic.
Okay.
Well, so the recipe technically calls for 2 to 3 garlic cloves, so you'll just have, if you're going to use the jar of minced garlic, then you'll have to use whatever measurement you want. I will tell you that I do not like the jarred stuff. I've tried it.
If you've got the jarred stuff, then it would probably be that they're asking for about a teaspoon of that for the 2 to 3 cloves. But if you like a lot of garlic, add a bit more. If you don't, add a bit less. It's up to you.
On the clove of garlic, where you cut off the little pieces, is each piece denoted as a garlic clove?
Yes.
Yes.
The whole thing is a bulb.
The whole thing is called a bulk, you said?
A bulb.
Bulb.
B-U-L-B.
Yes.
Yes.
But the individual things that you take the wrapping off of, those are called cloves.
Yes, the little segments
Yes.
are cloves, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Alright, so now we're going to add in some salt and pepper. Now, one thing I do with the garlic is I don't actually buy the bulb, but I don't buy the jarred stuff either. Instead, I get already peeled garlic that comes in a bag. And believe me, that is a lot easier to work with than the peeled stuff because you don't have the peeling and stuff. You just have the nice little garlic cloves all ready for you to go, and you just mince, and you mince, and you mince. Okay, so now I've added in salt and pepper. Now let's go get our garlic. Probably, I might actually have to try. In this house we don't really do much with tomatoes. I probably should have done the tomato paste anyway, just because I think it acts as like a thickening agent, and that might have helped with the.
Well, because you're gonna have the broth, it's not gonna make much difference.
That's kind of what I thought. All right, now where did my garlic go?
Especially since you're leaving out the wine.
Right. All right, so there's my garlic. And so this comes in a nice little Ziploc bag. If you get it from Amazon Fresh, it actually comes in these vacuum sealed packages. But I like the Walmart experience better. I realize the Amazon one is probably a bit fresher, but since it's getting cooked, it doesn't really matter as long as it's still good. And so I've got a garlic mincer. This is the type that my garlic mincer is a little, it has two handles. You lift up the one side and you place the garlic into this little shallow dish that has holes. And then you put in as much as you think it can handle. Really, I should probably put in one less, but I put in 2 or 3 cloves in here. And now we're going to squeeze over the pot. And because these are already peeled, I can just place in the garlic and take out, just basically clean out the thing over the pot. And we do need a little bit more garlic for this. So I am doing more than what it calls for, but we happen to like garlic. So.
But if you just want it for just a bit of flavoring, then just what they call for is fine.
Yep, you could also cheat and use garlic powder if you want. It's not quite the same, but it would be an alternative. All right. So now we're going to put the garlic press into the sink. So, Cheryl, I want to thank you though, because you've given me an idea for a cooking call that I'll put together, but maybe really describing terminology of things, such as what is a bulb of garlic, what is a clove, what is a stalk of celery, or a bunch of celery, things like that. So that might be an interesting thing to do for one of our lecture type series calls. But of course also too, we want you to learn these things as you go along. But I'm going to rethink a little bit just how I describe, because a lot of times when I post the recipe things for the list, it is, verbatim from the recipe. What?
When you post them?
Well, I post them to the cooking. You post it to the cook's list, but
who posts them on the list? Yes.
You post them on the list, but I post it to the thingy form. Whatever it is we fill out every week. The facilitator.
Yes.
Yeah.
But,
and if you want to do that too, hey, one last thing from you.
No, I'm good. I just wanted the acknowledgement for the list because you said that when you post them to the list, as in yourself.
All right.
So I'll post them to the list. You can see about doing the rest of the work.
All right, so now we're going to add in the beef back to this stuff. I'm going to stir that in, and then we will add in the beef broth. And I think I actually do have some thyme that we can put in. The thyme leaves, not the
was gonna say we're running short on that.
And so going back to Doug's question about the meat being cooked and stuff too, I mean, it's gonna cook through some more anyway, so I mean, you still want it cooked as much as possible, but it's not the end of the world like if you don't have it fully cooked because it's gonna cook more just being put in with the veggies. You're at least giving it another minute or so. So next we want my beef broth, which I have here. So this calls for 6 cups of beef broth, which is, could have just as easily said family size, because that way you don't have to waste time asking your devices how much is 6 cups when you're looking at what to buy from the store.
But it depends where you get it to what size family size is, though.
Fair enough. Well, this family size is what, 48 ounces, I think. Anyway, it's a big carton. And so the first thing we've got to do is open it. And there's a little lid thing that we pull up. And there's a seal inside that we have to peel away. And since we have just the one container to have to worry about, we don't need to worry about any measuring cups. It's spilling though. But now we're just going to pour it all into the pot.
Slowly so that you don't get splashed with hot oil.
Yep. Well, this is a pretty deep pot though too, which also helps, but...
Yes, but
okay.
Something to bear in mind.
Yes.
And the other reason that they mention the amount you need rather than just saying a family-sized carton is that some people might make their own broth and therefore they wouldn't actually be buying a family-sized carton.
Well, that's no fun. I mean, that's doing extra work.
Oh, I'm not disputing that you're valid in getting the carton. I'm just saying that that's why. They think about people who for some reason want to do more work than they have to.
That makes sense. And I just got the regular beef broth. There are low sodium ones you can get as well, if you prefer that type of thing. But I'm going to now stir this all together. Now, do I have thyme? As in the thyme leaves, not the... I got some red pepper flakes. That would be good, but spicy.
No,
nutmeg.
I don't think that red pepper is a good idea. And I definitely don't think nutmeg's a good idea.
No. I would agree with you on
no.
No.
Isn't it Meg in your house?
Yes, it's Utmeg. So, I don't know. Since we don't know what Utmeg is, maybe it would work. I mean...
Let's not try it, huh?
Nope. Okay, there's thyme. So, the late, great Jim Croce wrote about thyme in a bottle. And I don't know why, because we do have thyme in a bottle.
Well, maybe he just needed some for his recipe, and that's what he's really singing about.
Maybe. So we're just going to sprinkle that into this. And the thyme has a cylinder of like the little hole thingies. So just kind of sprinkling quite a bit in there. Then we will stir it up. And I think we let this cook for about 45 minutes, if I'm not mistaken. Covered. Let's go check the recipe real quick. And if we do have raised hands, we will get to you guys in just a couple minutes. So
at some point, you need to get the potatoes in there.
I do, but the recipe said to do that for the last 15 minutes.
Oh, okay. I would put them in sooner than that, but okay.
Okay, so bring to a boil and reduce. So it says 30 to 45 minutes, depending on when the beef is tender. Add potatoes and simmer. Okay, so what we were actually supposed to do is bring this to a boil first and then let it simmer. So I'm bringing this up to a boil. Then we're going to bring it to a simmer, which is about low. And then we're going to cover it. It says to add salt and pepper, but we already did that to the veggies, so I think that's a little bit overkill.
Mm-hmm.
So I have brought the pot to a boil.
And while he's doing that, just bear in mind, people, you can do a meat-free version of this just by substituting the beef for mushrooms and using a veggie broth instead.
Yep. So that's really the only adaptation you need to make. If you don't want salt contents, of course, you can get low sodium broths or make your own. We did teach you how to make soup on this call, and that did include broth, so you can do it. If you want. And with that, do we have any questions on either side?
Abraham.
What's the difference between a stock and a broth?
The thickness, really.
Okay. And then I just wanted to add to you guys' jokes. If you get time in a bottle and you pour it out, does that mean you get? Is that how you get hourglasses?
Well, I just wonder if you pour the time out of the bottle, does this mean you're out of time? But
well, we will be if you keep cracking jokes.
we will be. Well, I'll just put. We'll see how many of you know your Hall of Notes, but I'll just mention this real quick. If you cut something frozen and you have numb fingers and then it recalls for time. So let's say you do frozen beef and you cut it and your fingers are numb and then you pour out the time, you could be out of touch and out of time. So, all right. Anyway.
Did you say there were any more hands, Sheila?
Yes. Cheryl, go ahead.
Oh, Cheryl, yes.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. On the tomato paste, how much of it do we use? The whole can of it?
So it just calls for a 1/4 cup. You could probably use more if you want. That would just depend on how tomatoey you want it. I think it really matters for the thickness.
Because of it being tomato paste, you don't want to really do the whole cup. It would be quite strong.
Yes, okay, and also, so it's a 1/4 of a cup is what it calls for. Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Also on the beef broth, did you do the pour in the whole container, or how much did you pour in?
I poured in the whole container because that
Okay.
equaled 6 cups anyway. So.
Okay. So you gave a link on the community thing to Dropbox. Is this recipe already available in Dropbox?
Not yet.
It will be after the call.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yep. I do that because an incentive, because I want people to listen to the call first, and then they can get the recipe. So.
Yeah.
Okay, do we have anybody else?
No, sir, not in Zoom.
Nobody in Clubhouse. I mean, there are people here,
right.
but nobody is asking a question.
Well, Lisa,
Right.
there. Hi, Clubhouse people.
Hi, Clubhouse people. So just want to remind everybody that one of the benefits of being in Clubhouse is, first of all, if you have to come in on a mobile device, you don't have to go searching through, and I'm going to bring this down to a simmer. you don't have to go searching through the headings and whatnot. You can just find the event right there if you're following the ACB Club. But also, another advantage thing with Clubhouse is you do get replays of many of the events that are broadcast into Clubhouse, including this one. So you don't have to wait for it to be podcasted or uploaded to YouTube. You do get the unedited version. So that is an advantage or disadvantage.
And again. I mean, enjoy
exactly.
us again, of course.
Yep. And those replays, by the way, you can also share the link to your friends and enemies and frenemies. Hey, Google, set timer for 30 minutes. So we'll check on this after 30 minutes. 30 minutes. So do not forget the power of Clubhouse, ladies and gentlemen. And for all you facilitators out there that are listening, and if you have your events in Clubhouse too, make sure if your event has replays on that you remind your listeners of that too. And it's one of the most underappreciated tools, I think, of the benefits of Clubhouse.
And a large percentage of the ACB events do tend to have replays.
Yep. So there you go. And one of those events that do have replays, why? It's none other than our ACB's very own recipe swap, which happens to be ran by our host, Sheila, who you'll find every other Wednesday. And next time it's going to be recipes for Mardi Gras, so if you have recipes for that, get those ready. And if you want more food, well, this Her Call is not on Clubhouse, but you can catch Desi every Friday morning with Desi's Diner at 10. And
for completely calorie and allergen-free food.
Actually, Herbie, it's at 11 Eastern time, so let's not confuse folks.
Oh, well, that...
Stop confusing people. Stop confusing people by giving them your time.
Well, I'm your facilitator, so it's my time if I say so, isn't it?
But
anyway,
but I'm also a facilitator, and for my time it's at 4. So,
well,
let's just stick to
really
time.
Fair enough. But the reality, guys, is if you have the emails anyway, you'll get the proper times from them. So
pay attention to them, not Herbie.
Yeah. But if you're in the UK, it'll be in the afternoon. If you're over here, it'll be in the morning. So technically you're a co-facilitator, so you know. No. Anyway, all right.
Technically. Mm-hmm. Do you want to organize your own schedule of upcoming calls?
Well, if everybody keeps backing out, then it won't be a schedule for me to organize. Now, will there? But no, I'll let you do it. Oh, it's the truth.
This is why people come to me about their calls.
Exactly. Okay,
anyway.
I think it's suddenly sounding choppy on my end. Okay. No, Tori did a great job. I noticed. Alright, but Tori does a job, guys. So. Oh, I forgot the Worcestershire sauce.
Oh well.
Oh well. Let's go find that real quick.
You can go and add it now. You can also, if you don't have Worcestershire sauce for any reason, either not use it or substitute with a bit of soy sauce.
Very good. Very good. Now, I think this is my Worcestershire sauce. Let's see here. So this is what the scanner is for. It'll tell me.
2 GB code.
Product 8.1 steak sauce.
Oh, that's steak sauce.
10 ounces, 283 grams. Solid description. 39 out of 10 steak sauces.
Well, it would change the flavor, but technically that would work too.
Yeah, it would. All right. I do know I actually do have some actual authentic Worcestershire. It's in the fridge, that's why I'm not finding it. But here we go. I can tell just by how it smells. And so we're going to, actually there's not much left in this bottle anyway, so we'll just pour some in. Whoa, that was a little bit more than I intended, but okay. But it'll get...
It'll infuse the flavors.
Exactly. So next week, speaking of our cooking call schedule, what do we have for them next week?
Hopefully, we have Belinda next week.
Ah, yes, that's right. Belinda, and she will be making for us her dill soup. So I will we'll get with that, and then now I've actually we got to figure out something for the following week. We were originally going to have Deb. What?
It's okay. I fixed it. You need to check your messages.
Okay.
Because
I'm being told what to do, guys. So okay, well.
Well, you see, the thing is, I had a request from your wife before that I was going to wait till April because we didn't have a slot, but I've pulled it forward.
Oh! Actually, it's funny. I was thinking of the same thing. So, with the flatbread, correct?
Close. The other one.
Oh, the focaccia bread.
The shortbread.
The shortbread. Oh, okay. Well, I knew it was some kind of bread. Yes. All right. So, yeah, we can do the short. I think we'll do the shortbread then. That's fine. See, guys, that's why I have Tori on as my scheduler. I don't have to think. I don't have to feel. I can just do as I'm told, and things run smoothly.
Yeah. So we're going to do the shortbread, and then you can have a whole month of actual cooking themed things through March, and then we'll do the flatbread at the beginning of April.
All right, sounds good. All right, so let's briefly talk about the potatoes. And ideally, what you should, I was hoping to have baby potatoes because those would be easy enough to cut in half, and that's what you want to do. But we are just going to slice regular potatoes, and I will just kind of cut them into like small, like chunks. And for potatoes, I like to use really like kind of like a paring knife. As I think that's what it is. It has a flat blade, so it's not serrated, and it just treats like you're cutting the potatoes with a butter knife, and it really cuts through them nicely. I am using red potatoes, and because these are a little bit easier to work with, they are a little bit more healthier, and they're more the ideal type for boiling. Though you can use the baking potatoes if you prefer, but they will have a slightly different texture, I think, than the red potatoes would.
But it's whatever your preferred potato is, really. Or if you end up getting your potatoes substituted in your groceries, whatever kind of potatoes they gave you.
Mm-hmm. So I'd forgotten to put away these carrots. So I'm doing that right now. Oh, crap. Well, there goes the rest of that Worcestershire sauce, whatever. Oh, that's a bad word? Okay. Well, easy to be called, but to be fair, when you get caught by surprise.
There are worse words, so yeah, there are worse words. I'll give you that.
Right. Well, the good thing is at least for the podcasts and whatnot, these calls get edited, so the editors will decide if that word gets added on to the. It may get taken out, so. But if you listen to the archive via the stream or a Clubhouse replay, you will get my colorful language. So, but unfortunately, with a call like this, it's one thing when you're sitting there in front of a computer facilitating. When you're doing stuff in the kitchen, unfortunately, things can catch you by surprise at times, and not always in a good way. And
this is why we should make a habit of not using those kind of words, because then if we don't use those kind of words in the first place, we won't be saying them when we caught by surprise.
Yes, Mom. Okay, so first of all, what time, T-I-M-E, is it?
It's 15 after.
All right. I was going to originally ask how much time do we have, but, that could have been interpreted. And by the way, guys, if you want to know more about words... No, I don't either. But if you want to know more about words like time and time, well, why not check out the Helpful Hints with Homophones call. It is a call done by Mary Haupt. It's today at 3 p.m. Eastern. See?
He learns.
Yeah, see, I'm doing my part, so you all can do your part by coming to the call and supporting her. She does an excellent job, and I'm not being paid to say this. I'm not in any way facilitating or hosting the call. I'm just a regular participant, but she does a fabulous job with the call. She gives sentences. There's a lot of audience participation, and it's done in an orderly fashion. So...
I'm glad you said regular.
And, oh, well. Okay, so I think this is about a pound of potatoes. I'm just guessing.
Herbie, do you want to take the two hands you have?
I do. I did not know I had hands. So actually, let's take them.
Diane, go ahead. Diane, you're muted.
I know you like to ask if we can hear you, but we cannot
Finally.
hear you.
Jeez.
There you go.
There you go.
I had so much trouble with Clubhouse this morning trying to unmute that I wound up.
Tech gremlins. Anyway, did you have a question, Diane?
Yes, I do. Or a comment, maybe. I'm wondering how your gravy comes out. Sometimes when Joe makes his stew, of course, he just puts stuff in. He doesn't, I don't think, follow a specific recipe. But sometimes he has had to add a little cornstarch to his pot, to thicken the gravy up a little bit.
Yes.
Well,
but I will say,
if you're using actual gravy, then that might be something you might have to do. But also, it depends how thick you want your stew.
Yeah. The thing I was going to say about it, though, was that you have to be careful, because if you don't stir it all the way, if you don't stir it thoroughly enough, it'll clump into lumps and be awful. So, be careful.
Definitely.
If you ever do that.
And I think the
stuff was for.
Yeah. I'll probably, and I might add in a little bit of cornstarch towards the end. I won't add it in right now. We'll see how this stuff looks. But I was originally thinking flour, but cornstarch might actually be a little bit better. And, but yes, I was thinking about that because we don't have the tomato paste to thicken the stew.
Something I use that you probably wouldn't have, but it's something that I use and it's something to bear in mind, is nutritional yeast, which it's good for adding some extra vitamins to it, but also it will thicken your broth as well.
Ah, that's a good idea, though. The problem we'd run into is I don't know if Chanel would let me use it for that because, she likes it for her popcorn, so...
well, you'd only need a very, very small amount. She might be willing to let you spare it. To spare you that little bit. If you ask her nicely.
Well, if I ask her nicely, okay. Well, if we like the stew and I get nutritional yeast for popcorn, I will ask her nicely next time and just say, please. All right.
Hey, Herbie, you got 10 minutes. Cheryl has her hand raised.
All right, Cheryl.
I'm sorry to be asking so many questions, but I'm kind of a beginner cook anyway, beginner to intermediate level. But anyway, you mentioned the garlic cloves coming in a bag already prepared and so forth and so on. What do I need to search for at the grocery store in that regard?
So, Walmart, at least, if you search for garlic cloves, you'll just look through the category, like through the different options until it says like already peeled. Let's see. So if I bring up the Walmart app here, and different stores might have something a little bit different, but it'll definitely indicate that it's already peeled garlic.
Okay, and I can see what you're saying, that it's a good idea to get the already cut onions and the already cut carrots. It saves you time.
Saves you time, but you do have to bear in mind though that if you get the already prepared stuff, although they are time savers and energy savers, they do not keep quite as well as the fresh.
I've experienced that.
Okay,
And also with the potatoes, do y'all take the peeling off or just leave the peeling on?
That's a personal choice.
I leave the peeling on.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
I leave the peeling on for pretty much anything I do with potatoes. I never peel them. Hated having to learn how to peel them, but I know the skin has all the nutrients also. So at least with Walmart, and I would imagine this would be the case in any other grocery stores. So I searched for garlic cloves, CLOVES. Hey, I don't know if that's a homophone or not. Cloves and cloves.
It would be.
Anyway, yep. Anyway, so in Walmart it comes up as like the first thing I saw is like garlic 1 bulb each. Then there's like a sleeve of 3 bulbs, and then Spice World already peeled garlic 6-ounce bag. So that's how I know it's the already peeled garlic, and I added some more to the cart because I used quite a bit of it today. Mm-hmm. So it will actually definitely indicate that it comes as a bag. If you use Amazon Fresh, it's something a little bit different, but
you'll find
clear
it the
that
same
it's like
way.
already peeled.
Yeah. Okay, and when y'all peel a potato, and I've experienced this with a sweet potato, you can boil it on the stove, and the peeling will come off very easily.
Yes, you can, but it's not. I always did peel potatoes because of the fact that it was just how I was taught. But it's not necessary to peel a potato, and as Herbie did mention, most of the nutrients are actually in the skin, so it's kind of better if you don't have a problem with eating the peel. It's better if you leave them.
But if you do decide to peel the potatoes, is boiling them on the stove probably the best one?
No,
honestly, no. Go ahead, Tori.
Your best bet, really, if you're going to peel them, is to just get your peeler and peel them. Because if you do them on the stove, then yes, the peel will slide right off, but they'll also already be cooked, which will cause a problem for you adding them to the stew.
Okay.
The other thing I was going to say. All right, I'll get to you in just a second there, Desi, I promise. One thing I did want to ask you, though, Tori, if somebody wanted to soften the potatoes first, like letting them sit in water for a few minutes, that might make it a little bit easier to peel, but not actually boiling them. So that's something you could try.
It would, yeah. It's something they could try. I personally find it easier to just grab your potato, grab your peeler, and peel them. But if that makes it easier for you, then sure, go ahead. But be careful not to cook them for too long, otherwise they're going to be all mushy and disgusting when you have them in your stew.
Yeah, I understand.
Right. Okay, Desi.
All right, so Chris Rossetti is here, and I believe he would like to speak to us. So go ahead and unmute, Chris.
Hey, Chris.
Hey, good morning from San Francisco. Thank you so much. I was just curious, do you have a preference of type of potato? In our house, we like the Yukon Gold, but is there a preference that you have? Thank you.
So I just picked any, red potatoes. Sometimes I'm limited to what's available. And I really don't have a preference myself.
For me, it depends what I'm making to what my preference is. And sometimes I will just grab whatever potato because I don't have a preference. But like for something like a stew, I do like to use like baby or new potatoes because they're just easier. You just roughly chop them and they're done. Um, but also do like to use our local potatoes. You can get ones that are actually Welsh potatoes. Because supporting local businesses and stuff, and also they do taste good.
Okay, thank you so much. And do you deliver to San Francisco?
I'm afraid not.
Okay, thank you. Bye bye.
Well, they should deliver to San Francisco. They could use those little cable cars that climb halfway to the stars. Oh, wait a minute. Okay.
Okay, you have one more hand and you have 5 minutes. Heidi.
All right.
Hey, Heidi.
Heidi, yes. Take us out.
Hello. I did want to let people know, and we do have them. For the peelers, you can actually get ones that actually hook onto your finger. And me and Nick refer to that as pat the potato, because basically that's all you're doing, and you peel the potato that way.
All right.
And
Yeah,
I
that
believe
sounds-
they have
Well,
them
I
at
can-
Walmart. And I believe they also have them through like Maxi Aids.
Cool.
All
Thanks,
right.
Heidi.
But like I said, if you can, if you're able to, I would encourage everybody to leave the skin on the potatoes and give them a try, and because that's you're gonna balance out your starches with a little bit more nutrients anyway that way. So, just something to
then
think
you
about.
don't have to worry about
Tastes just
peeling them.
fine. Exactly. All right, guys. So
do
that's
wash
gonna
them.
do it. Yes, definitely do wash them. Yes. All right, that's going to do it. My thanks to Sheila and Desi for hosting and moderating. My thanks to Deb for streaming. Thanks to Twinkling Tori for co-facilitating. Thank you to everybody who listens to this, no matter the method. I appreciate every single one of you. And
Thank you to Herbie for doing this in the first place.
You're welcome. We'll see if Belinda can make it for us next week to do the dill soup. If not, then that we will we'll move up the shortbread to that. Flatbread. Okay. Flatbread and shortbread. Then hey, we're becoming breadwinners. So either way, we will have something on tap for you for next week. So I've got the
This is
stew.
Cheryl again, and I wanted to ask you again
make it
about
quick.
potato pillow. You said you can get them through. You can get it through Maxi Aids, and where else? I didn't understand that.
Walmart. Look at Walmart as another alternative.
Okay, is that the flat one or the one that you just scratched across the potato?
When you scratch it across it's one that fits on your finger. You can get a potato peeler pretty much anywhere.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay.
So what I'm going to be doing is adding the potatoes to this for another, and let them cook for another 15 minutes. They should really soften up, and we'll have some beef stew, and I will just see how this works out. And I didn't realize I could make use of the full 2 hours today, so I do apologize for that, but it's just as well because I've got to host at 11 anyway. So
11
all
your
right,
time.
11 my time. So, but it's good to know my time when I'm hosting, I think. So
Yeah, yes.
all right, yes. All right, on that note, Sheila and Desi, you may end the respective rooms.
All right. Thank you
I
very
am
much. Bye,
ending-
everybody.
I'm ending the
Bye.
call.